Well, hello and welcome everyone to this podcast Alma en Paradoja or Paradoxical Soul. And today I have with me a very dear friend and colleague, Katrin, and we'll be having a beautiful conversation which we don't know exactly where it will take us, but we'll be just opening up about what it means to integrate the masculine, the feminine, and just integrate our spiritual understanding into everyday today life. So, Katrin, welcome.
Yes, thank you.
So, why don't you share a little bit about yourself with our listeners? Who are you? What inspires you in life? Whatever it's alive in your heart.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ximena. Hello and welcome. I'm very happy to be here in this beautiful place. We're here in Mazunte. You guys can't see it, but we have an amazing ocean view overlooking into the distance there's a sense of like spaciousness and openness, and I'm just here to share background. I'm a psychologist and holistic leadership coach. I've been working in the field of supporting people in their growth and their development for almost 15 years now. Noticed I'm not getting younger, and and it's really just been a passion to, as I'm on this path of growth myself, this path of, I don't even know what you want to call it, this path of spiritual growth, but then also personal growth, this path. And it's been my big passion to really help and support people in integrating these both worlds. Yeah, because I know many people in the spiritual world, I know many people in the business world, and somehow both sides are sometimes missing some important keys in life, or it feels like they're missing important keys in life. And I've danced in both worlds, and I continue to dance in both worlds. And yes, and so this is here. And this is what I'm here for. This is my passion, and I would love to share more about this today and just see where our conversation goes.
Beautiful, and thank you so much. I would like to, if you would like to share, to start hearing a little bit of how that, because you said it, you're coming also from, well, you're coming, I'm guessing, because you're working with people more in a business background. And then you started your whole spiritual journey a few years. So maybe would you feel like sharing how did that spiritual journey started for you? Was that something that always felt alive within you? There was always a curiosity, or was there like a breakthrough moment where all of a sudden you were like, what is life? What is God? And something changed.
Yes. Oh, thank you for asking. Wow, this experience in this lifetime has been quite interesting. I was sharing with Ximena before that, let's see. So I used to be a people development HR consultant, for
Okay.
5 years of my life. I studied psychology at some point, then went into the business world because that's where you make money, and I wanted to make money. And I remember just showing up, this, blonde 25-year-old in the consulting world with lots of gray-haired men. And I remember I would just, show up in my little business suits and just really smart, really prepared, really structured, really on point. And I was really good at what I was doing. Yeah, I was really good at consulting, really good at supporting people. Was early on facilitating. I remember one event, we were doing it together, but it was a group event for 100 people. And we were facilitating that event together, and I was 27 years old. And I remember, wow, this is awesome. This is so cool, that was nice. It was very nice. And all of these things were flowing and seemingly perfect. Job, relationship, all of life was really flowing, but I could always feel like there was a lack inside of me. There was something that I was missing, and I didn't know it at first. And it showed itself through excessive party in my case. It would be like work hard, play hard, work hard, play hard. And me and my partner at the time, it was both of us. We were doing that great. We were working hard and playing even harder. And so this was going on for many years. And at some point I was asking myself, like, what? This can't be it. This can't be it. I have this job, I'm making all this money. I have great friends, a great community. a seemingly great partnership, you know, and but still there's this like this need to vent and like to blow off steam on the weekends, and yeah, that's when I started asking myself, and I started to realize there's something out there for me, and that's actually when the first time Mexico started appearing in dreams, and had little visions, seeing myself in a Spanish-speaking country. And it was in 2016, while I was still working in a relationship. Well, actually, I quit my first job. I was still in a relationship, and I took this 2 months trip by myself to Ecuador and Colombia back at the time. Yeah, and it was my first little breaking out of that safe environment, the bubble, the corporate life. My partner at the time didn't understand. He didn't understand what I was searching, why I would go on vacation by myself, why I would leave him and whatnot. And this is when it all really began, when I really saw, it wasn't even the intention of that trip wasn't spiritual. I just, went there, Spanish speaking, I don't know what's there on this side of the world. There's something to be discovered, and it just kept on unfolding. Then Mexico started to come into the sphere, and I went back to Germany, worked another job for another 2.5 years, went back in the rat race, saw the same cycle, the same somehow unhappy me. And it was at some point then in 2018 when I already had planned, 6 months before I planned to quit my job, saved up as much money as I could, and I just went to Mexico, one-way flight to Mexico. I stored my boxes in my mom's apartment, in my mom's basement, actually, at the time in 2018. I asked her, can you keep my boxes for like 4 months? We now have 2025. The boxes are still there. And that's when I discovered Mazunte, discovered Ridaya, discovered a beautiful community. Slowly through intense yoga and meditation retreats over many years, started to unravel and unfold deeper layers of this being, and tap into an intuition that I always had. And that was one of your questions also, and I'm going to stop with this monologue. That was there always like an intuition, and I think a lot of us have, we just forget. And I do remember as a child I had this intuition for that there's something deeper, that there's something deeper to life. And I remember this like one moment I will never forget, like just me and myself dancing in the fields and just singing out of the top of my lungs and just spinning around. And I was, I think, in 2nd or 3rd grade, and it was tough actually for us growing up. It was a little bit difficult in my family, but I remember there was such a happy, connected moment. I was so connected with myself, so connected with nature, and it was just this moment of, just total immersion. And so that intuition was always there, but through the course of life and conditionings and what we have to do in, while we grow up, when we study, when we go to work, it was just really forgotten. And coming back here to Mexico, to Mazunte, it was uncovered again, even in a deeper way. So here I am.
And so here you are, all these years after. And I mean, I think it's so beautiful always to listen to everyone's journey, because it can be so different, right? And it can also be so different the way in which the voice of this intuition shows up. Because what I found really interesting as I was listening to you is like how somehow the partying for you was the alarm sign, which in a way is like someone that lives a very outgoing life and enjoys themselves out a lot. It's something that we're like, wow, great, that person is just like living their life to the top, right? Like we would never use this as an gateway to questioning ourselves. It was like, wow, what is this behavior showing? So just that for you, this was the alarm saying like, hey, there's something here that is maybe not coming out like from a real, well, I mean, I'm sure you love partying, but it's not just like the love of party, but also it's hiding away something. And to see how that intuition like just took you took you to that place through that voice. And I also find it interesting and inspiring that because for me the journey was completely different in a sense that I never felt like I succeeded in life.
Mm-hmm.
So also this idea of renouncing life felt very easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I'm already terrible at like the world and achieving any success for myself, so this spiritual life makes a lot of sense. But for you it's like, no, actually I had it all. And still in having achieved everything that society has told me that I need to achieve, there's an emptiness there. There's something that is looking for a deeper meaning. And I think it's important because so many people out there can relate to that, right? Of even when I make everything work out in my favor, like there's some flavor missing. And
it's like, why am I doing all of this? What is it all for? Like, what is it? And people feel this, like I would say when people wake up in like a normal setting is when we're actually missing these things, when things are taking away for us, like you're in a happy marriage or a happy relationship and then something happens, I don't know, your partner cheats on you or you get a divorce or something like that. This is like when people usually wake up and get startled and wake up out of this perfection. And it was interesting, like you say, like because I was in this perfection in a way, and like even the relationship, even in the retrospect, yes, there was not the depth of love that I now discovered is possible, because the deeper that I love myself, the deeper the love in the relationship of course can go. So back then, looking at that, all of that was seemingly perfect, but it wasn't. So there's like this, and I don't know if any of the audience shares this. It's like when you have these moments where you just know this isn't it. This can't be it. And I know a lot of people are asking themselves that, because I go back home from time to time and I speak with my girlfriends who now have 2 children or 1 child, happy family, house, and I can sense, and sometimes they even say it, there's this intuition like, is this really it? Or even a lot of the clients that I'm supporting, like especially men that I've worked with for quite some time, that are in their late 30s, 40s, child, wife, CEOs, founders, like successful businessmen, and somehow something is missing, and like and honestly, that answer from my perspective is only to be found in the spiritual practice, or whatever you want to call it. There's so many different forms of spiritual practice. Some people it's meditation, some people it's yoga, other people it's gardening, or so there's so many, but it's like at the core to find that depth of your being, that deep connection with yourself, and to be able to come back to that and rest in that, no matter what the hell is going on in life, in your relationship and in business. And that's like, this is something that I try to help people with, to come back there, especially when shit hits the fan, and you're in your business and trying to have to make important decisions, or you're fighting with your loved one. And this is something I'm obviously very much still learning myself. And while I've like I can see myself succeeding in this very well in a business context, relationship context is still
working on
something work in progress, because it's, that's where the biggest or deepest wounds or deepest triggers are usually located. But it's like, that's what I'm really passionate about, because it doesn't matter all of those things that you have on paper. And I've worked with people that have really, like I know people, I didn't work with this person, but I know 2 people that are, they're done, like they have all the money, they're settled, and they're not, one's 40, the one's in the mid-40s, both men, and one is highly depressed. He doesn't know why he's living. He doesn't know why he's worth it. Beautiful family, beautiful wife, beautiful child. But really in a place mentally where, people around have to be worried. And it's like, so this is when it's not about the money. It's not about the beautiful wife, the family, the house, boats, whatnot. It's like, if we don't have that deeper connection and we haven't found it, and then we can't freely tap into that, especially in moments of crisis, it's like yeah, it's like that's to me now, like, yeah, it's the most important thing. So no matter where my life goes, this has to be. And I know you share this because you're also very
here
much on the
because
path.
I'm here. No,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what I think, like, as I listen to you, another thing that I find it's important to reflect upon is like this word spirituality, right? Because nowadays it's a big word, you know. Everyone has a picture in their head of what a spiritual being is like. But as I listen to you, what I recognize is like the spiritual journey calls each of us in such a different way again. And it's not always necessarily like oh, I want to go to like sing devotional chants with other people, or I'm looking for God. Like sometimes we think that it has to look a certain way, right? But actually, like the calling of spirit is that calling from within, that part where, like you said, is saying like I have everything and still something is not settled. So that part that sometimes we start recognizing that missing part, and it just calls us in such a different way. And I say this because I feel like also out of this almost cartoon that has been painted in modern society around what spiritual beings are like, which sometimes we are like that. It's not to say that it's all a lie, you know, but a lot of people have like created this resistance of like, no, I don't want to know about it. Like, oh, those hippies that like, I mean, Instagram is full of those like pictures of like just people that are completely out of touch with reality, and be like, no, but wait a second, like spirituality, of course, like part of it is like are the rituals and the structures that have been created around this, but it's really just this calling, like this deeper calling that appears for each of us. And there's so many different ways in which it can be explored, right? And not necessarily is going to be like, hey, I'm looking for God, I'm looking for like enlightenment. It's like, no, but I'm just looking for that deeper meaning that allows me to stay connected to life, and also not only to life but also to my life as it is, right? So I think, well, for me, as I think about it and as I see society nowadays, I feel it's so important to be like, we probably all have a spiritual calling. It's just like, just because it's not showing up in a way that people are perceiving spirituality should look like or feel like, it's not there. And also a lot of people are getting trapped in that, of like in a way even resisting themselves, because they are resisting the form in which like a spiritual reality is presented to them. But like humanity in so many ways is really waking up, and it's also beautiful to see. And I don't know like how you perceive that also, for instance, in your coaching business, as like, are most people that come to you people that already have a spiritual background and a spiritual longing, or are more people that are like not even knowing what they want, just in that unknown of life? Doesn't make sense.
No, totally. It's both. It's very much both. And as I deepen my own spiritual path, more and more people are coming to me that are already on the spiritual path. And like, and I know we also share this. We're not, hold on, let me see that I can get this right. We're spiritual beings in a human experience. Not the other way around. We are spiritual beings in a human experience, and I am absolutely convinced of that. And I know most people are in a similar way convinced of that, whether they have experienced that themselves. But really this knowing, this intuition, or even spiritual moments. It's so funny when I work with CEOs of like businesses with 1,000 people, and then they tell me, but when I was like 25, I was touring through Mexico, and I was just I was doing POD with and it was just like, oh, okay, so I work with these people 20 years later. They kind of got caught up in life and family, business and whatnot, and they were like, back then I was really connected, and there was something I know, and I know it's still there, but I just totally forgot it, or like I lost totally track. So what I feel like, most people have an intuition. Over the years, more and more people are coming to me with having an intuition and having had some kind of spiritual experiences already, because they're everywhere, like no matter if you're yes, you know, like working with substances and working with plants has become more popular. Even, you know, Kundalini awakenings, working with Kundalini energy and whatnot. So these more intense experiences on an energetic level are more freely available. But even apart from that, most of us, you know, like may have had some kind of expansive spiritual experience during sexuality, for example, you know, like, or even just really, really alone, like visions. Or I know a lot of people, yeah, like if, you know, we take away this the very mindy component that's just like this is real and this is not real and this can be and this cannot be. We all have the capacity to really perceive things that are just like it's hard to put on paper, it's hard to explain. So more and more people are coming to me that have had some kind of experiences, have intuitions, looking to integrate that, looking to remember, yeah, but they're caught up in everyday life, and like all of the business decisions and business things, and have forgotten, you know. And it's like, what I'm noticing is that more and more people, it's like you have this intuition, but yet you are putting the business first. You're putting, you know, everything first. And our teacher, Sahajananda, when he shares about this topic, it's, you know, the integration, it's the integration of everyday life into spirituality. Did I say it the right way around? It's like basically you have a spiritual life and you're integrating your...
Always.
But he mixes this up as well, so... So basically it's all about your spiritual life. Everything, well, if once we can see it from that perspective, everything can be a remembrance and a moment of remembrance, you know. But like our spiritual practice, and until we're there that we can live in this integrated place, our spiritual practice, and that what keeps us in this remembrance, needs to be the core, the very core of what we're doing. And that's kind of what I help people with, and this is what I work people with, because when they come to me and I'm lost, I'm not feeling connected to myself, I'm having, you know, like, oh, I don't even know why I'm here, why I'm doing all this, I lost my purpose, I'm not on track anymore. It's like, okay, but how's your practice? When do you have moments that you're actually sitting and connecting with yourself? It doesn't mean you have to sit in meditation for 30 minutes or 60 minutes. Many people don't like that. Many people can't do that. It's like, but it's like, okay, you know, one client, for example, I was working with, it was like, it's my walks in nature. I need my walk in nature every day. And then I'm like, why? You know, like, this needs to be your core. 20 minutes, walk in nature. It doesn't matter what's happening with the family or your daughter or your business. This needs to be the core, and everything else needs to be planned around that. You know, and it's like, and it's so simple, yet sometimes people don't do it. And it's like, and you can't tell me you don't have time for 20-minute walk in nature, no matter what you are and who you're, you know. So it's this whole idea of, and this is something that I'm very passionate about for myself, and I've really discovered, because when I feel disconnected, and obviously we all have moments of more and less connection, but when I feel disconnected, I'm like, okay, what's my spiritual practice? What's that like? What am I doing? You know, what am I doing to feel connected with myself? Am I dancing? Am I singing? Am I surfing? Am I going out in nature? If I'm not doing any of these things and I'm not feeling connected to myself, it's like, well,
no wonder.
You know, and so I don't remember exactly what was your question, but I think you asked a little bit around what kind of clients come to me, and more people definitely do have an intuition, some form of spiritual practice. Since I started hosting retreats more recently, I've been working also with a lot of the people, or some people from the retreats. So here we have people from the highly functioning world, from the corporate world, that now did, say, a 3-day silent meditation retreat for the first time. And then, you know how it is after facilitating retreat, people come out of it and they're like, oh my God, this is the best experience of my life. This was crazy. It was beautiful. Da, 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 da. You know, and then it's like, and then I started supporting, interestingly, in this scenario, primarily women in their integration journey, because they're going back into the real world, into the business world. Yet now they have made this spiritual
contact.
Yes, they've made this contact, and like there's a sense of like, and it is a way of waking up. I know there's like, it's a big buzzword, and when we're talking about awakening and all these things, some people are like but it is a form of waking up, becoming more conscious, becoming more aware. Because what happens when you sit with yourself for, I don't know how many hours are in 3 days.
Many hours.
You sit with yourself in meditation, and you're observing everything. Like, you actually learn to observe. There's thoughts, there's emotions, there's the body. These are different elements, like different aspects of my being, and you learn to differentiate, and you become more aware of what's really happening in your being. And it is a form of waking up. So they come out of this experience a little bit more woke, I guess. And then it's like, okay, but how do I take this into my everyday life? I'm going back to my family. I'm going back to London. I'm going back to London. I'm going to start a new job. One client, for example, just started a new job in Amazon, and she's like, how do I take this with me? And it's like, and it's a big question, and it's something that I'm obviously.
It's the biggest question, I feel, somehow, right? Because, and one thing that I really want to take away from what you said is like, because we ask this question so much, and I think also we use this question as an excuse sometimes, but you said it, it's simple. Actually, like, it's the most difficult, but it's the most simple thing. Like, you're feeling like so disconnected from yourself, and I mean, I know I speak a little bit out of privilege here, but it's like, okay, like, stop looking at your computer screen and just get out there and look at the ocean. And it's like, it can be so simple as 5 minutes sitting in front of the ocean to change my entire, like, inner experience, right? But it's just like sometimes what it takes for us to snap out of that, like out of like that loop or whirlwind of like, this is my experience, there's nothing out of it. And life is always like, hey, but there's a sky, there's a wind blowing, like, just connect, because it feels like life is always calling us back to ourselves. And sadly, and also it's beautiful, right? But like, we have so many elements right now that just keep us so like stuck to a screen and so like disconnected from ourselves that it's just becoming increasingly harder to create that space for ourselves. But actually, it's not hard.
No.
It's like, it can be, again, and there's also this idealization, and it's something that, as I was hearing you say the word practice, it's like, I have a huge resistance to that word, right? Because it's like, what is practice? Everything is practice. And that's the truth. It's like, we also have created this separation of like, practice happens on the mat. Practice happens on the silence in front of your altar, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, life literally equals practice. And if we like get to make this integration, because it's integration at the end, it's like, how can we receive anything that is happening to us as an invitation to come back into this awareness of ourselves, as an invitation to come back to our spiritual essence. And like, whenever I used to work at Hridaya, I mean, and also it was like a little bit of a way to defend myself, because I never had like a stable like formal practice. But whenever people that are not practicing, they're like, I'm always practicing. It just doesn't happen on the mat. But I think it's important, outside of my own anger, for people to understand that it's like every moment in life is an opportunity for practice. And also, I think it's the big question, right? And you were saying it in other ways, but there's always this thing of like, are normal life and spiritual life compatible? Because we have this idealized vision of the spiritual being as the one that retreats into the mountains or goes into the ashram or does this or that, and then again it feels so distant. And it's like, but that can be a way, and it's a very beautiful and valid way. But for most of us, that is not the way. Like, if we're still choosing to be like involved in this day-to-day life, probably our way is a different way, and it's just as important and as relevant, and it can be as deeply spiritual as any other, right? But again, how do we allow life to be the practice, and also maybe create certain like more formal practices to support that? Because also we know it's hard. even though we have the best intentions, like we know, and now I'm speaking from a nervous system perspective, that like sometimes as much as you want to override whatever you want to override, the nervous system is like,
No.
we're dying here, like just fight, just tell her she's a bitch. Like, and then it's like, then comes the spiritual shame of like, no, but I should know better, forgiveness, compassion, and it's like, no, not at all. And it's like, how do we start like coming back together, like, yeah, like bringing back these two visions that are actually not two, they're not opposite. I think also our conditioning has taught us to believe that it's one thing to be human and another thing to be spiritual, but like you said, like we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and both of these experiences want to be honored and want to be felt and experienced, to repeat the word. And I don't know why I started saying that. I think it was like in reflection of some of the things that you were sharing, just because again I think that question is the big question that always comes true for people of like, but how do I ground that spiritual and understanding into my everyday life, right? And it's like, well, it's either or. I'm in retreat for the rest of my life, or I'm an asshole in day-to-day life. Now, I'm not saying it's always like that, you know? But, like, and how have you found that?
It's a constant quest. It's definitely a constant quest. And I can speak only from my personal experience, or at least what some of my teachers are sharing, that until there's a certain level of stabilization, a certain level of awareness, you know, being able to zoom out at all or at many points in time, not at all points of time, at many points of time, I do really feel that a formal practice is very, very supportive, whatever that formal practice looks like for you. And I love how you actually said, you know, like the wind and looking at the ocean, like, so that to me sounded like a very much like, maybe that for you, a spiritual practice is very much involving your senses, you know, which would be also very you know, tantric approach. Yeah, and then just like, just going outside, feeling the wind, taking some moments to look at the beautiful ocean. Yeah, yesterday I was sitting at my computer listening to a song, and it fully immersed me. And in that moment, I looked out the window through the mirror that was right in front of me, and there were the most beautiful interplay between birds that was happening, and it was like perfectly synchronized with the music. And I was just like, you know, like just everything stopped. I was writing emails, you know, like in the focused, structured masculine self, and it was just like, this is it, you know, this is what life is all about. These moments is when you realize, for me, it's a moment where I perceive God, God to be around, God to be everywhere, and whether you call it God, consciousness, love, doesn't matter. I'm formally raised, by the way, just a little side note, absolutely atheist. Before I came to Hridaya Yoga, it was not possible for me to even have that word God come across my lips. Yeah. So now that I can use this freely, and it has no meaning to me because I know what's meant and felt by it, is like it's huge. But yeah, so there was one of those moments yesterday, and it was just, you know, like, and for me it's the same. It's like it's in nature. It's in nature. I have a ritual here in Mazunte that I go usually on a sunset walk, you know, and I can really feel the mind from the whole day. And then at a certain point, the less people there are, like towards the end, I get like to the last 250 meters, and I can notice, okay, it's free, it's flowing. And then I walk towards the end and the rocks, and when I come back, I can feel, wow, now the creative part is sparking, like new things are sparking. I can feel like the juice it's just completely new. And it's the same thing, because also then, you know, and this is actually where spirituality and psychology come together. It's like this understanding and learning your unique psychology of what you need, you know. And it's like, whether it's, and all of us usually do good in nature, you know, but maybe for some people it's actually like having a really hardcore workout, or having a nice little chat and coffee with their best friend or something like that, you know. Like, it's like really learning to figure out what's best for you. And it's to come back to that formal practice. I do feel that at the beginning, and I remember in my first few years, I was blessed actually that when I really had, right after I did the yoga teacher training, we had COVID. Yes, I did the yoga teacher training in 2019. I didn't really have much to do with yoga at the time. I always loved meditation. I could sit, like the first few retreats I had, I was just like blown away. I was like, okay, this is awesome. But I couldn't really do much with yoga and not much with the lectures. But then there was COVID, and I stayed in Mazunte. I did a longer darkroom retreat. There was nothing to do after I came out of the dark, so I started doing 4 or 5 hour yoga practices for an extended time period. And it wasn't even like, this is what I'm gonna do. I did have a little, okay, I'm in retreat, I'm gonna see how things go. And I started doing the practice, and it would just be like, the first few days, maybe 2-3 hours went by, and then it was just like, I started at 7 or 8, and then it was like, it's 1 o'clock. It was just like, it just happened over the course of time. And so I really also discovered my love there for Hatha Yoga, which from a somatic perspective can be extremely healing. I don't know, like science still doesn't know exactly how things are working there, but like, I mean, you probably know more about these kinds of things, but we are working on deeper layers of the being. We're working with pressure points, we're working with like fascia, whatnot. So there's a lot of things that can happen during Hatha Yoga practice, and a lot of things happen for me there. So I really had that formal practice for a certain amount of time. And then I had these phases of no formal practice or very little formal practice, and I could feel it. And so and now I'm like a little bit in between. I started working with the Mahavidyas, Tantric wisdom goddesses, so since last November. So since then I've been more or less on like a formal practice, because when you have a tapas with them, it's usually daily. But also like sometimes it's like 30 minutes. Oh my God. Yeah. So my point is for everyone, it's helpful. It's really helpful to have a formal tapas, like actually like setting yourself a certain kind of practice, whatever that looks like for you. And this is actually where we're coming into an interesting perspective, because the spiritual practice can be kind of flowy and intuitive, and we like to be in these nice states and going maybe more a little bit with intuition and flow. But when we set ourselves, for example, a formal practice, a tapas, is when we have the masculine come more in. That's like, okay, but I know this is important for me now, and this is going to help me, and so I'm going to do it. I'm going to set it, and whether this is meditation or an evening walk, or like with my client, it was his 20-minute forest walk every day. Whatever it is for you, that helps you in that sense. So it's like what I have discovered over the years of working with people, it is like we know what's best, but then we don't do it. And then it's like, the question is, why don't we do it? Why are we sabotaging ourselves? It's so simple. Like Sahajananda always says, it's like the act of remembering and just coming back to the heart is so simple. We just have to remember. We just have to remember to do it. But until we're there at that level of awareness that we can just snap out of the argument, the fight, that moment where we're like, ah, she's a bitch, until we're there, I do feel like we need this formal practice, or this formal discipline to keep us on track. At least this is what I'm noticing within myself. Also for me, it's a lot about setting certain goals and plans and having a vision for my business, because I can't always just be, I like to do this and I like to work with this client. It's like, if I'm trying to go somewhere, I need to have a bigger picture. I need to be able to just have my fixed days of where I'm sitting with this, and then I'm doing this, and then is the org, and then I'm writing invoices, and then so it's like coming back into, at least this has been my process, coming back into more of a formal, more disciplined practice, coming back from a very nice and flowy state into bringing more fire back into my life. I don't remember exactly what was your question, but
that's where we
going.
arrived. This is where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Okay, no, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I do have like my own personal resistances to formal practice, and I think like as I listen to you, I think also my journey has to do also with the psychological aspect of like sometimes the shame that is associated with not being able to have that discipline within myself and how that creates a resistance, right? But I also see it like what changes when and again, it has to be simple. For me, at least, it has to be simple. I know some other people that already have that fire, like, or strong fire. They can be like, my tapas is going to be 4 hours of like strong hatha. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, you tell me that, and it's like, I don't wanna know anything about spirituality ever again. Like, take me back, take me out of here. So also like, how do we play with our own, like, with our own needs, right? So it has to be so personal also, of just being like, okay, out of compassion for myself, and compassion in both directions. Also like compassion for the part that really struggles with this, but also compassion with the part that needs that.
Absolutely.
That says like, hey, this is what will keep you grounded. This is what would bring you back into touch with life and not just keep you looping into your own pain. So it's like, how do I create the best structure, like you said, for me? And it can be like that. Like I at this moment, I cannot commit to a formal hatha yoga practice, but it's like, that sunset walk, and that sunset walk changes everything. And there's like always so many excuses. I remember one time, and that's when I realized like, wow, the mind. I was here, and just for context, we literally lived 2 minutes like to the beach, and I was just here like watching a movie, and the movie was like a scene of the ocean, and I remember for a moment I was like, oh how I wish I could be there. And then I had a like, excuse me, look out your window, there's the ocean. Like, what are you doing? But like literally how deeply the mind can trap us into like, I'm not living the life that I want. Everyone else has a wonderful life but me. And that sabotage that comes from it, and it's like, no. And maybe you're again not lucky enough or to have the ocean there. I mean, it sounds ugly to say it like that, but okay, maybe you don't have the ocean, but you still have the sky. Even if you live in the city, you still have maybe your dog, you still have your cat, like those elements that are like, wait a second, you can drop it, you can be present, you can breathe. Again, even just breathing, right? And it is true, it's like it does change things. It does like shift the energy in a different direction, because otherwise like the gravity of like our habitual thinking is so much going to bring us back into a certain place, right? But again, just for me, like coming back to how do I create that structure from a place of compassion and not from a place of what anyone else seems to be doing, right? Because also nowadays we have so many points of reference or of like comparison of like, oh, there's the influencer, they're doing this, all these biohacking things, and then I should be doing it, I'm not doing it, and
it can be really overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so like what I like, usually I have like 3 steps when I'm working with clients, and like this moment of remembrance, and ideally I work with people that have an intuition or somehow have this capacity to come back to a place that's quiet, that's still, that depth. Like so, and ideally like this often comes for people when they've done a silent meditation retreat or had like some kind of plant medicine experience or something like that. So this is like the first stage when we can come back there. And if that's not available yet, then I, like through the practices that I do with clients, and I help them find that. But usually I'm just like, go do a silent meditation retreat first, And then the second step is really this whole awareness piece of really helping people learn their psychology and understand themselves, from personality types to attachment types to like our attachment behavior to how do we function? How does this vessel function? Which is obviously a combination of all your genes, all of your experiences. And that's like, that requires like careful dissecting of actually figuring out, okay, what is Ximena like? What are her patterns? The healthy patterns. Like, how does she work? How's she motivated? What does she value? Like those kinds of things. Like we look actually at the things that make you work, that drive you. that, you know, like, because everyone is so differently motivated by, you know, like, some people work with money and some people are motivated, other people, you know, like, they very much value community or value this sense of togetherness or having a purpose and whatnot. And it's like really beautiful when you actually have people, some people can say this right away, many people often don't know, you know. And it's like, okay, but if you're constantly doing something that's not actually your main value or driver, then it's like life can get a little bit difficult. Yeah, so this is like the second step. And then like the third step is also helping people see their dysfunctional behaviors, the shadows. Yeah. And you were just speaking, for example, of the shame that you're experiencing, you know, like when you know you should have a formal practice, or you know you just go to the ocean but then it's like there's a moment of totally forgetfulness as you're sitting here watching a movie, you know. So those patterns of behaving that are holding us back through experiences in our lives, small traumas, big traumas, depending, you know. And so I do help people explore and uncover these, while I'm very, very clear. I do have a background as a psychologist. I don't go with people into the deeper traumatic work. There's a lot of specialists here, like, that are working with these kind of topics. Somatic therapists, like someone like you know, like, that actually goes and works at the level of the body. Or I quite often actually recommend people then to work with a psychotherapist, for example. So I'm quite clear in terms of the boundaries. It's like, this is the roadmap, this is what we're doing. Okay, you know, there's certain tendencies, maybe certain addictive tendencies that are coming up, but we're not speaking of like, even though like usually I make the distinction with like patterns that I've kind of navigated through myself and come out on the other end. I do feel more comfortable to actually support people because I'm like, I've been there, you know. But for the most part, like if it's like, you know, I'm discovering with someone, and I've had this also, depressive symptoms, you know, like where it's really like, oof, there's a little borderline. I'm like, I'm not sure, you know, and then I have a network of people I can refer to them to, because I feel like that's also important nowadays with all of the offers and the depth of work that people are offering. It's like, you know, like where do I still feel comfortable or not? But this is a little bit the roadmap that I navigate. And what I'm discovering a lot is like people really have this spiritual depth and like, the spiritual practice and the fascination for the spiritual practice, but they don't know anything about their psychology. They don't know what drives them, what motivates them. They don't know their patterns in the functional patterns, but also the dysfunctional patterns, you know. Or the dysfunctional patterns are because of the stars or because of when you were born and whatnot. And while I do use these systems a little bit, and I respect that, but it's like, yeah, now you can see the moon and the eclipse and whatnot is happening as something that's like a determinant or something that influences the way you are. But then it's like, do you want to be like that? Do you want to stay like that? And if people like, no, okay, then we have to work with that. You know, so it's like, this is sometimes where it can get a little bit interesting. Yeah, or you have the people that are, you know, like all studied out. They've done all these like courses on psychology and have done lots of therapy, for example, but are having a hard time finding the sacredness in everyday moments, you know. And so it's like we jump back and forth a little bit between these, I don't know, steps and stages, depending on where people are at. Yeah. And like, yeah, so this is what I found to be quite useful. At the core, it's always coming back to remembrance. Yeah, it's like no matter what's happening in your life, it's like, how can you come back to something deeper with all the, you know, madness in the world, because there's a lot of things going on.
There's a lot of madness in the world,
a lot of
for
madness.
sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of things to integrate and to feel for ourselves. I think there tends to be this. I think it's human nature to kind of go to the extremes, right? It's like, or we're all here, or we're all there. Like, oh, we're now all about the light and love. Oh, now we're all about the shadow. It's like, and sometimes, yeah, we forget to live in between, you know, in the possibilities of life. And it's like life is happening in this entire spectrum. And of course there's the shadow, and of course there's also the light. And it's like, how do you always navigate your experience, like knowing that all of them are possible? Because it is true, like we tend to, and I think that's why, like you said, like knowing our psychology is so important, because a lot of times as we take on the spiritual journey, we really want to completely bypass the human that is like taking on the journey, and we don't realize like how many things we're actually literally like trying to bypass by a spiritual understanding, which is very true within itself, but also that sometimes we can just use to hide away from that which we don't want to feel, or which we don't want to recognize. So it's like, oh, I feel sad, let me just go meditate this away. And it's like, great, meditate, but also are you available to just feel your sadness and recognize that that is there, and not just like kind of this, sometimes this way in which we think that spirituality is about fixing us in a certain way, right? And it's like, oh, it's about me becoming this amazing version of myself. And it's like, no, it's about recognizing the sacred, even in the moment of total devastation, and when you don't know what to do with yourself, and you're like completely confused and shattered, and it's like, it's not taken away, like it's not like God is not present there. It's like,
it's even more present in the pain, no?
Remember God in those moments where usually it's like the tendency is like, oh, I'm alone, or I'm abandoned, or so. I think it's so beautiful that you bring this integration to really help these people, like help people navigate that also within a framework of who they are as a person, and from there like feel themselves within the divine, like in a way that is also part of integration, right? It's not only integrating ourselves back into the same business environment or like family dynamics, but it's like it's integrating into ourselves whatever it is we're understanding, so we have different tools or different spaces from which we show up into the same places.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a journey, and like
I just want to check out the time.
Yeah, it's really a journey, and it's like, I don't know, you know, like everyone is on their own little journey, on their own path, and it's like, you know, and I see so much suffering out there. I see so much individual suffering. I see so much collective suffering, and it's like, with all the things that were maybe shared even today, or what's being shared in general, it's like whatever we do, this whole little thing, it's like we gotta remember it's a ride. All of it is a ride, you know. And like as you were sharing, it's like you go outside and feel the wind. Or like I was sharing, just seeing that little play with the birds. I was watching it for 5 minutes, you know, to give yourself these moments of like life. You know, there's gotta be a little bit of juice. There gotta be a little bit of fun to life, with all the being on a spiritual path and having a business or family and whatnot, you know. And like, and one of the most important things that I'm always like, I'm still on this quest, is like knowing is like, okay, this is when I can navigate through certain things on my own, and this is also when I need help. And I recently started working again with a mentor. In the past I've had therapy. I feel like coming here to Ridaya, working with spiritual teachers I still very much respect, and that are my teachers nowadays, you know. And it's just like, that's brought a big shift, like for myself, especially someone that was really early on taught you gotta be, I had to do it on my own. Like there was not anyone there, so it's like I gotta figure shit out on my own. I gotta be self-sufficient. I'm not asking for help, you know. And so like obviously we all have our own topics and we're on our own little quests, but now for me it's like, it's also this like, we don't have to do it alone. We can have a little fun ride. And sometimes the ride isn't so fun. It's super scary, you know, like when you're going up the roller coaster and you're just like, oh my God, it's happening. It's gonna really, really be scary when we go down, you know. And then you don't have to do it alone. You can, I don't know, take your therapist, your mentor, your best friend, and just hold hands as you're going down. on the other side. You know, this is a big learning for me, for someone that tends to do things alone.
Okay.
And so, like, yeah, I'm saying it out to the universe this whole year, and since I did a shadow work retreat in India, in Bali, the theme there, collaboration, really came. Like, it was a very powerful woman that I was working with. Poof. If you've ever done shadow work or shadow work retreat, like, it's
not in that like
being someone that's very like soft and gentle, and I like to handhold people, and I don't like to confront people too much. It was really interesting to see how modality that's just like can work, but you got to be ready for it, you know, and you got to have the tools also, and we knew what we were getting ourselves into, so it was, but it was and the biggest learning from that retreat was really to seek more collaboration. So when you actually reached out and asked if I want to be part of this podcast, I was very, very grateful. And I'm like, yes, you know, like, and this things like that starting to happen once we had that realization and set a focus in this way. So for me, it's collaboration, togetherness, doing things together.
Together. And I mean, we haven't even touched into it, but like, because we at one point we discussed, it's like, it would be interesting to talk about the play of the feminine and the masculine energies within life, within building something for yourself. So as you recognize this theme of collaboration, was this also like something that like tied up together with you, with being in touch more with this one of these energies? Because I feel like it's a lot of a trademark of the feminine, right? Of like community feeling, like being in touch with each other, and more the masculine is I do it on my own. It's like I can take care of it. So how did this come into play?
It's interesting that you're putting. I haven't even seen it like that, to be completely honest. That of course, because I know that there's this tendency in me to do things, to get shit done, and that's why also this whole tapas and fiery practice, 4-hour hatha yoga is something that works for me, because that's the default. You know, that's when we're looking at our psychology, is when the default. What's the default like when you're in an intense environment, and for me over the years, it's become more integrating the feminine, and the feminine, of course, as you say, that's asking for help, that's collaborating with others, that's, you know, inviting others into our space, and also coming here to Mexico. Mexico, I don't know, what would you say? I mean, Mexico here specifically has a very fiery energy, but there's a sense of flowiness, there's a sense of, like, I can feel it within myself every time I come to Mexico. It's like, just like there's more dancing, more juicy, more, there's something very, very special. So absolutely, collaboration is something where I'm being asked to come into my feminine more, and you're helping me actually become aware of this. So thank you for that. And it's happening, like, for me. So let's say this example, you might be completely different, but for me, it's easy to keep a disciplined practice and to do my things and to do my to-do list, but it's more difficult to have these, you know, like these softer practices, the feminine practices. So I'm getting better. I'm getting a lot better, you know, like where I get up and dance throughout the day or do nice and flowy and fun things. But this is more difficult. So this is like something that I have to remember. It's like, okay, default, no structure, knows how to get shit done. And when I get stressed and when things get busy, I forget the self-care, the softness, asking for help even, you know, like that's nothing. Like, I know so many successful business owners, women also, they're just so good at that. They're like, oh, I have this and this and this and this. I don't have to do it alone. And I have this person, I can ask for help here. And then putting together a little team. And I was like, wow. You know, I'm fascinated when people can do that, because that's ultimately also, if you're really trying to grow your business, go somewhere, you're going to have a team. You're going to have to know how to ask for help. So this is something I'm very much still on the integration path, but it's happening also. I'm actually having my first retreat in Germany. Found
like
a location.
Teaching your first retreat.
Well, it's not where I'm teaching my first retreat, but where it's all organized. Like I had retreats in Bali, silent meditation retreats I was facilitating, but it was like people were coming through a school.
Okay, so this is like your
This
first
is
self-organized,
you know, like so. And it was so interesting because I could feel, speaking of like, you know, like we had this earlier, self-sabotage and, you know, where you know what's next and you know what needs to be happening, but still there's parts of you sabotaging, and I could feel like I was procrastinating it. I wanted it to happen in the summer, and then I was there in the summer, and 1 month before I was like, oh, let me see if I can make this happen. 1 month to make a silent meditation retreat happen is not enough time. For all those that have ever organized a retreat will know that this is not enough time, you know. But I organized it, actually had 6-7 people, but I couldn't find a location.
Okay.
That was right. So I was like, oh, okay, you know. And then I was like, okay, that didn't work well, you know. And then I was in Germany meeting some of the women that also wanted to be part of the silent meditation retreat. And then I pushed it again, and then my best friend was like, hey, what's the location? Let's find a location now. I was like, yeah, let's do it, whenever. And then I left Germany again, actually, and it was one of my former colleagues who was really, she's like, okay, what's up with the retreat now? I want to make plans because it's going to be over New Year's.
Okay.
You know, helping people actually go into the new year in a completely different space and setting, in a monastery right outside my hometown. And she was just like, okay, what's going on now? I want to know, you know. And then a few days later, one of my good friends was actually like, hey, your retreat, you know, is it happening now? I was wondering if you need someone to help coordinate. And I was just like, and this was all happening within a few weeks, and I was just like, okay, it's happening. You know, it's like the universe. As you put these things out there, you know, collaboration, I want to work together, I want to create things together. And then all of a sudden, the universe brings these things together. You know, it was easy to find the location, but there was a part of me that was just like, procrastinating, not doing it. When a masculine part is so strong and knows how to get things done, if I really want to find a location, I know I can find a location. But somehow, a part of me was still like, you know. And then it was actually the universe, through collaboration, through friends, supporting me.
Helping you open into that.
Helping me open into that.
Because like what I find is that most of us have a default mode, right? Of like being more in the masculine or in the feminine, but the truth is like, why are we there? Because we feel most safe in that expression of us, right? It's like you feel safe to be in the masculine because you have known how to keep yourself in that acting, in that discipline, and all of a sudden opening up for help and collaboration feels so vulnerable, right?
Absolutely. It's like, oh my God, I have to rely on other people, and they're not going to do it exactly the same way that I would, you know. And I had this back in the business days. I was managing people also, and I remember I had a hard time. With that, and just letting go and being okay with the fact that people are going to do things differently. I was positively surprised often, you know, because people will do things completely different and then come to very different and new solutions, you know. And like also when I was managing people at Hridaya Yoga at some point, when I managed the school, it was also working primarily with volunteers is a very interesting experience. And it was but yeah, so that's that sense of just, you know, taking myself back, trusting, allowing life. This is actually like a big theme, a big motto. It's like, let life do its thing, you know. And for this retreat, it was just like, oh my God, like you're actually resisting. But I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna, like, I know I have a list of like 10 people that said they were interested. Plus then there's an extended list of people who also said, keep me in the loop. It's New Year's. This can be very attractive for some people. Other people are going to be like, no, I want to, you know, party. But I would challenge that because it can be a very powerful experience. Like in the past, I would have never imagined like to not be celebrating, drinking and partying on New Year's. But when you can let go of that, it's actually, wow, really powerful. So we don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's like
Allowing
allowing life.
Letting-
That's allowing life, yeah, without so much force and needing to have all the, like, holding all the strings and making sure. So yeah, I'm very much in that process of integrating both aspects. And like you say, every single one of us has default mode where we feel safe. Usually, like my theory is we have both. We're born with both, but through our circumstances of how we grow up, we tend to adapt, and take maybe one on a little bit more than others. And I mean, what I can see for a lot of women that I'm working with that are successful in the business world, there is a disconnection from that feminine, from the softer aspect of their being, and like some women find these again once they have children and they're with their children, but even then I can there's a perceived hardness about their being. I don't know if you have this as well, or you experience this, but I think you have a completely different environment and surrounding around you, like also the people than I do. But yeah, we have our defaults, and all ultimately looking for balance. At some point, bringing it
happiness.
together.
Yeah, I mean it's hard, right? Also because society still celebrates certain expressions of our being more than others. So it's like, oh, how do I exit this when it's like everything around me is telling me like, oh, you have made it, and it's like, oh, like it. I guess for some people it even like creates like a certain trap. Oh, this is what's asked of me to achieve this level of success that I asked. But then there's this all these other parts of me that then don't have space in what it is that I want to achieve. So it's also like an aspect that it really takes a lot of taking back our own power and saying like, no, I don't do it anymore as anyone is expecting me to do it. I do it in touch with myself, with my own values, with my own energy, with what's available for me. Because it's like, well, I mean, I don't think anyone can. I think everyone has like a different setup, but it's like, of course, we can all reach a certain. Not we can all, but sorry, it's like we can always self-betray and get to a point of a certain success or like achieving one thing, but it's like, again, to what price?
Yeah.
It's like, how do we make everything happening in our lives really be in honoring of all the different parts of ourselves, and like creating the conditions to give space for so many different dimensions of our being to be alive, which again sometimes in this societal view may seem like they're contradictory, right? It's like, oh, the hippies that don't work, or the ones that are sold their souls to corporate or whatever. And it's like, why does it have to be one or the other? Isn't like this human spectrum so like completely rich that we can imagine all these new possibilities, and in that imagination like really start bringing all parts of ourselves forward? Because even I guess, and I see it, it's like, even if let's say we are very used to feeling safe in our expression of the masculine or the feminine, that doesn't mean that the other is not available there for us. It just hasn't found a way in which, again, to feel safe, to be expressed, to be in relationship with. So it's like, how can we start creating the conditions for each one of us, again, because it's different, to like give.
You know what I found though, what's interesting, no one is gonna say, very few people are gonna say, I will give you the space, you can start bringing out that side. Not your business, not your employer, not your parents, often not even your partner. Yourself also not. And this is where it really starts. It's like, but no one's gonna allow you that stage. Like, if you've ever been like, for all business leaders out there, if you've ever been in a sitting and a woman with like in a board meeting or something like that, and you start being like, well, I feel, like, and like, or actually have been like bypassed, like, it's just, you just don't get listened to. There's so many studies on that, when women get interrupted, they don't get listened to, they don't get taken seriously. So like you say, it's like the society, it's like how can you be in such a business setting in a softer, more feminine, more connected way? Because you don't get taken seriously, and people will interrupt you, and your colleagues won't take you serious, and it's like it's really 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 a thing, and I know it from personal experience, and it's the same when you start taking this space at home, and you start, I don't know, telling your partner, I'm gonna start doing my forest walks. Like in this case of the man that I was working with, is like, I'm gonna start taking the forest walks, and he was very much primarily responsible for his child, and so it was creating difficulties in his relationship because he was the primary caretaker of his child and the business. And it's like, and if you're this is the thing, like this is also where like systemic work, systemic therapy, family constellation and whatnot can really, and this is when we're asking for help, and we need to ask for help, and external support is when you're actually, because yes, you can have a lot of drive, you can have a lot of motivation to change from within. From my personal experience, the biggest catalysts for change is when you're in deep suffering. We know this, no? Anyone that knows Eckhart Tolle, or other spiritual teachers, and even spiritual realization can come out of these deep moments of suffering. So yes, if there's intense suffering, maybe you have the motivation, the fire to finally make that shift, but like I don't wish that upon anyone to come in these kind of situations, states for themselves, but it can be the main catalyst. But otherwise your environment, usually you're in that environment for a reason, because you're like, everyone around you knows you the way you are, and she does everything for everyone, and she's sacrificing, and we don't have to worry about her, she's just gonna be okay with whatever we say, and then it's like, how do you find the motivation in such a setting to break out of that, and then you notice you start to do something different. You want to be more in your softness, you want to be more in your feminine, you want to be more in this flowy state, and then all of a sudden you're constantly receiving resistance from your children, from your boss, from your husband or partner, and it's like it's a very very challenging journey. So even when you have that motivation to come out from within and to make those changes, it's like your whole, and then your whole entire environment is just like, and that's the natural default, is resistance.
It is.
We don't like change. No one likes change. That's the number one psychology saying. When people are like, I love change, no, we know almost no one really likes change. We like a certainty. We like to know what's going to happen. We like to have our regularities in our schedule and whatnot. And there's very, very few people that are actually really, really deep down inside comfortable with unpredictability and change. Because back in the days, unpredictability and change
meant death.
Exactly. So we have to remember that. So our environment is also just reacting naturally, the way that anyone would. So you have to be extra persistent and extra sure about the changes that you want to implement. And this is exactly why spiritual events, or like retreats, or like really moments where you really get out and have a little cut from that old time in solitude, can make such a difference, because you really, really see the vision clear, you see the system a little bit more clear, and can come back with more of a clarity and more of a drive. But then of course also seeking for external help. But that's just a side note in terms of like how difficult it can actually be to make that change. And like trying to remember for myself, like I was saying it from the business context, I do remember like it was the first time I really tried to bring change into my everyday working routine, is when I was working, 60, 70 hours per week, and I was trying to tell my boss, like, this is ridiculous, like I'm not doing this anymore. How did I do it? I started training for marathon.
Okay.
So I would tell them, I'm going to my training and this is going to be a fixed part of my life. Other women have children, I have a marathon. This is how I did it. So I created balance by creating more intensity. It worked. And anyone that trains marathons and runs marathons, I'm pretty sure there's also something that's to be looked at there, because it's like, you really gotta love
No, but that's so interesting that he would only let you get out of it with more intensity. If you would have been like, hey, I just need more rest, I need space for myself to nurture myself in the feminine way, would be like, what are you doing? Like, you did that's not available at all.
what do you need?
Like,
How do you need something to become more efficient? You know, like can we look at the way you're going about things? Maybe there's something we can tweak on, like your processes, and you know, it's like
I want more intensity. Okay, granted. Go have fun.
It was absolutely accepted. Yeah, it was
That's-
absolutely
That's
accepted.
insane, but
Yeah.
okay, makes sense. But
Yeah.
it's crazy to
Yeah.
witness and perceive.
Yeah. And of course, it's a decision within myself. I could have also tried that other path, but somehow there was also an intuition in me. That's going to be the easiest way to get that. But of course, it didn't create. I was trying to bring more spaciousness in my life, more softness, more. And of course, it didn't
You
happen
have
with
to
a
start
marathon
somewhere.
training.
At least you gave yourself the time. I think. I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's a beautiful story in the sense that also it doesn't have to start perfect. You know.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like you see it and it's okay. Like in nervous system work, we speak so much about this term titration,
Mhm.
which is like, if you don't know the word for people, it's like just like drop by drop, you
Yeah.
know, because we're so in love with drastic change, which I think also is what happens a lot of times for people coming into retreat. It's like, I'm gonna be a new woman or a new man after 10 days of silence, and it's like, yes and no.
Yeah.
It's like, of course, there's going to be a whole new dimension that's gonna open up within you, and you're still you. So it's like step by step, because when we're so in love with that like idealization of like drastic change,
Absolutely.
we really self-sabotage. So
Yes.
it's like also this part of just like do it imperfect, like with whatever is available for you. Like, I need more space. I still don't know how to say like, hey, I just want to rest, but I do that by going and running a marathon. And maybe next time I do it by saying like, I'm just gonna like take a trip to like a spa with my friends, or whatever it is, no? But I find that so beautiful, like this idea of imperfect actions.
Yes.
And it's just like taking the steps that are available for us as we like start going about this transformation, because like you said, the environment will like receive us with such a resistance. It's like and again, compassion for them, compassion for ourselves. Is like when people see us changing, it's like it's so scary, it's
and
terrifying.
remembering the resistance is normal. You know, the resistance is normal, like you say, compassion, and that we don't need to fight their resistance. We just see the resistance and we see it's part of actually the resistance is like, ooh, something is changing. Something is changing. I'm on the right path. If there's resistance around me, means I'm on the right path. Because there's actually change happening. You know, so I mean, I maybe you can even be like, the more resistance there's around me, the more I'm actually changing. But yeah, no, I used to have a really, really hard time. I remember also when, sorry, I don't know if I interrupted you. I used to have a hard time with like, well, still, it's always going to be a topic. I love to get along with people. Yeah, there's very few people that I don't get along with. And I remember one of the biggest transformations. I don't even exactly I can't put it into words what was really happening. But there was a time in my life here when I was last year, I think 2023, 2022, when I started to have conflicts with people, and I was like, what's going on? You know, like especially with women. I started to have conflicts with women. It was the first time in my life since, you know, teenage years, and we probably all remember our conflicts from teenage years, that I started to have conflicts with women. And at first I was like, what's happening? And then eventually I realized, oh my God, I'm changing. You know, there's a part of me that's not accepting certain behaviors anymore. You know, like I'm not saying, okay, yes, amen to everyone. I have certain expectations of the women, the friends and girlfriends in my life, you know, and that was creating conflicts. And so I think the resistance is a beautiful, it's not comfortable, of course. It's something we have to get used to. But there can even be this, because it is an indirect indicator for how much we're changing.
Mm.
It's okay, we all get a little bit excited about the resistance.
Like yes and no. It's not the fun thing, but it's a beautiful thing, like you said, because ultimately it's our own life, right? It's like people will choose how to live their lives, and we choose how to live ours. And there's like people will not always be ready to move along with us. To be like, hey, I'm changing, I'm coming with you. Some people will be like, no, I'm perfectly fine where I am. And it's like this part where sometimes being truthful to ourselves means losing a lot of things along the way, and that's a heartbreaking truth. So but it is like
and
that.
I've noticed the people that you lose, it's happened to me many times, they actually come back around at some point. Not always, and that's not the goal, not the intention to keep everyone in your life. It's like, I think the more we embark on this journey, the more, like, and if we want to be our biggest fan, our best friend, our biggest lover, it's like there's this constant need to put ourselves first at every point in time. Yes, we can be very compassionate. We can, like eventually maybe we can act and live like Ramana Maharshi, who's a friend of all animals, or Mother Teresa, but most of us are not going to get there in this lifetime. I won't get there in this lifetime, and then it's like, if we don't live in this constant, okay, but like I am doing the best I can. I'm here to make a difference in my own little way, and I have these beliefs, and they can change and they can shape, but now I believe this, and this is true for me right now. And someone that wants to come with me, that's great. If they don't want to come with me, that's also great. And like I said, like the amount of people over this transformation, like, because of course when I left the business world, I had most people around me saying, she's crazy. She's absolutely gone mad. There's something psychologically wrong with her. Perfect job, great pay, unlimited contracts in Germany. You have unlimited contracts. Also the amount of people that want to come and live in Germany, immigrate in Germany. Like, I mean, like, so for most people, the majority of the world, doing something like that is just insane. And I had a lot of people shaking their heads at me, and now years still there's people coming around and saying, boah, like, that was brave. That was really brave. And I can see the transformation. I remember you. And they're just like we're still, like, you're on your path, and I'm going to continue to be on my path. But they, like, the feedback that I'm getting from the outside, that it's like, oh, something has changed. You're more real. Like, I can actually feel you. If you would have met me 7-8 years ago, it would have been like, this is nice, but I feel a little, maybe people still feel like that, and that's okay. But like, I really have people from the business context, from studying, from old friends that are really seeing the transformation and the change that has happened when we allow ourselves to, like, embark on this life, this quest with curiosity, and are bold, do brave things, and do things out of the norm. And then, with this resistance and people pointing their fingers at us and whatnot. And it's just like, what is she doing?
It's like, I love how the word courage, I mean, in English it doesn't mean anything, right? But it's like, if you look at the root, like, because in French it's like cœur, like heart, and it's like to do something from the heart. And we think it's like this bravado thing, but it's like, no, actually, when we listen to this call of the heart, as happened to you, it's like, that is courage to do that from that place, not knowing what's on the other side. It's not like just putting on an armor and just being like, nothing's gonna touch me. It's like, I might die on this, I might die on this journey, but my heart is telling me, like, this is where you need to go, and I might lose things, I might find other things, and just like this part of somehow being truthful to ourselves, which again we're not trained for. We're trained for conformity. We're trained for like what is expected of us, and it's just like as an imitation. And for some people, that's so fulfilling, right? Also to say that.
Yeah.
It's not to be like, oh, this is the only way. Some people it's like, I have my family, I have my job. It's like, wow, I feel so fulfilled in this life. And that's where their courage is, like that's where their heart is. And for some other people, life is like, no, it's somewhere else, it's something else, and just to allow ourselves to go there with all its complexities and contradictions and paradoxes.
Yes, I remember actually that now that you say that, I love that example, no, and like coming back to the heart and the cœur. I remember for the longest time, it still sometimes happens that people will be like, I hope you find what you're looking for. It's like, you're out on this quest, you're out about, you must be looking for something. And yes, we are all, in a way, looking for something, but it's not like looking from this lack. Like maybe I set out to look from, because I felt like, well, this can't be it, like what I'm living can't be it. But it's like life is a quest, and like, and it was I was always like, now I'm amused, and I don't get it much anymore, because in the past it was like, I hope you find what you're looking for. Now we're like, oh wow, that's actually quite inspirational. Like you're actually following your heart, you're following your dreams, and I'm living this life. The amount of people that I have reaching out anonymously, I mean, they reach out, but obviously they would never want me to share this with their families or with their wives or whatnot, that are just like, shit, like, I don't know, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if this is it for me. I don't know, I chose this. Or like, even like when I come back home, people trying to meet me, like they want to tap into this, the kind of life that we're living when we are living from the heart, and from this, like when we're living outside of the normal script, I would say, and so like I do feel there is a wide range of curiosity for those that are like curious, and you don't have to break out of your family, you don't have to leave your family to live a life like this, no? But I do feel like, like something like I don't know, immersing yourself in silence should be available to anyone.
It is,
and it is available. It is available to anyone. And like taking that time, whether you're a husband or wife, and like taking that time for yourself. And I feel like what I'm seeing a lot with my circle and the friends and family, it's like, then it's just like, it's just a family, and you can't do these kinds of things anymore. You can do these things, but I can't. No, that's not true. I don't believe that. It's like we can do anything. Everyone, we can learn to surf. Ximena, we could start tomorrow when you learn to surf.
I could. I mean, not to be very practical, I'm looking at the ocean right now. I don't think tomorrow is a good day for a beginner, but we can go on land. I can learn tomorrow how to surf. It's true. It's also about breaking the inner narrative that tells us we're not capable or something, right? But that's a topic for another episode.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it feels like a good place to land right now. So thank you so much for this conversation, for opening your heart. And if you would like to tell people how they can work with you, if they feel inspired, where they can find you, I will still post it in the comments, but just to share that.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys also for listening. If you made it all the way to the end, congratulations. We went through a very beautiful flow of all kinds of sharings, and thank you so much also for guiding me in this. You guys can find me on Instagram, blooming.of.hearts. Probably best to link underneath. Yeah, and there you can find most information. That's where I'm primarily active right now. I'll share my email with you as well, and then people can also reach out via email. That's the main two channels. I'm a little bit on LinkedIn as well. But mostly people are finding to me through Instagram or word of mouth. And I mean, we're all on this journey. I'm on this journey. I'm continuing to be on this journey. I continue to be guided and supported by the universe, by beautiful mentors. If you feel a calling to work in this way, or even to be part of the silent meditation retreat if you're in Germany, maybe.
And speak German. Is it gonna be in German?
It depends. We're looking actually at the list
Okay.
of who's gonna register, but it looks like right now it's primarily Germans, which
Okay.
actually I would prefer to have the retreat in English, but I will manage because I'm teaching mostly in English and I'm sharing in English. So offering a retreat, it's a thing. But it's going to be beautiful in a monastery just outside of Regensburg, which is an hour north of Munich. We're going to be there from the 30th until the 2nd, so 30th of December until the 2nd. It's going to be beautiful. Some of the people I worked with, some of the people are just like there's some really, 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 really cool people in there, like a leading expert from in AI is most likely going to take part.
Exciting.
Like it's a really cool group of people, but then also people I know from the spiritual world over the years. So we're going to be a really, really nice mix of people, nice mix of energies, and yeah, anyone that feels inspired, has questions about anything that I shared, please reach out. I'm very happy that we had this conversation. This was also very inspiring for me, going deeper within myself every time we talk about these things.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Now we're gonna say bye.